Thing called the Clinton Foundation U.S. House Hearing Investigation, 2 p.m. Eastern. Watching it live stream on YouTube from Fox 10 Phoenix. Nothing really major yet, but now they're going into the second part of this, and I think it might get a little bit interesting. I'm hoping, because what I just saw was kind of a crap show. So on that news, let me go ahead and get a video out of the way while I'm waiting. Zero Hedge, Holland. Hey everybody, I'm from Holland, isn't that weird? Heats up. Belgium burns as French yellow vests protests spread across Europe. So this isn't just a France thing? No. It's not just a gasoline tax thing? No, it's not. The people have had enough. Their income's becoming crap. Their lifestyle's going down the tubes, what they're used to. You know, like we got the American dream. Well, their, Holland dream and their Belgium dream are going down the tubes like France. Bringing in all these immigrants. Again, the people have had enough. I need to switch that camera there a little bit. There we go. Authored by Robert Wheeler via Daisy Luther's Organic Prepper blog. Okay. Editor's note, when I watch the Yellow Vest protests in France and now in other parts of Europe, I can't help but wonder if this is where, too, are headed here in the, we, too, are headed here in the U.S. Between widespread political divisiveness in an economy that is truly suffering, despite what you see on the news, people here are also fed up. It is only a matter of time before people in the U.S. take to the streets by the hundreds of thousands and say, enough. It's truly essential to watch what's going on in Europe to get a glimpse of our potential future and to prepare for it. Well, if anyone's going to protest, it's going to be the left. And there's not a lot of people on the left, believe it or not. So I don't know that we're going to have that kind of problem here. Miss Daisy, which I appreciate you, Miss Daisy, but let me lower this volume just a hair because the thing is starting. Oversight of non-profit organizations, a case study on the Clinton Foundation. Anyways, as protests continue to rage in France, discontent is festering. Elsewhere in Europe at the same time, what began as a routine protest deep in Paris has swelled to over 100,000 people in approximately 5 locations throughout the country. Anger over yet another eco-fascist gas tax seems to have been the straw that finally broke the camel's back. Except, as I'm telling you, that's not what this was about. It was not just about a gas tax. What do we got there? White chocolate, strawberries, what? Oh, damn. I wouldn't normally press pause, but I think I want you to watch me eat this. My wife. She just made some white chocolate. Dipped strawberries. You prejudice, Evelyn. Mm. Mm-hmm. Not live. I'm recording for tomorrow. Emily, vacuum, please. That's just wrong. Jay Snip, you were wrong for doing that to those people. On that note, I will pause this. I'll be right back. All right. Where was I? This, of course, was combined with other problems, too. Constant foreign military adventures, falling wages, rising cost of living, rising cost of healthcare, privatization of essential services, cultural disruption as a result of heavy migration, and growing unemployment as a result of free trade globalist policies. Now we're talking. Now that you're starting to see what this is about. Wasn't just a gas tax. France is now facing the possibility of martial law or greater unrest and violence. It's not just France dealing with yellow vest protests. And again, I'm going to stop. Cliff High's Webbot report called this a few years back, 2 years ago, 2016. Just FYI. In specifically France. And the discontent being seen in France is also being felt elsewhere in Europe, most notably Belgium and the Netherlands. Although receiving much less media attention, the Yellow Vests have taken to the street in Belgium over many of the same concerns as their counterparts in France. But while the French versions of the protests were set off by the proposed increase of fuel taxes and ballooned into a movement addressing greater issues, there was no straw to place on the camel's back in Belgium. There were no new fuel taxes announced or any other new policy that was receiving coverage in the media or causing discontent with Belgians at the time. The Belgian government is increasing the cost of fuel, but the policy is not a new one. Belgians already pay the biggest or the highest state taxes for fuel in all of Europe. Interestingly enough, it seems that the final straw for Belgium was imported from France. For all intents and purposes, it appears that the Belgian and Dutch protests are the reverberating waves of discontent that comes with such an integrated society in Europe, whereas the indignities suffered by the populations in one Sovietized, if you will, EU democracy are grievously felt in another Sovietized EU democracy. It is also reminiscent of the French Revolution, when British oligarchs were constantly on guard for signs of discontent with the dreadful conditions in that country, lest the same thing should take place in England. So why are the protests taking place in Belgium? For the most part, the protests in Belgium are inspired by the same situation in France, i.e., falling wages, rising cost of living, rising cost of healthcare, privatization of essential services, cultural disruption as a result of heavy migration, and growing unemployment as a result of free trade globalist policies. France 24 summed up a number of Belgian economic grievances when it wrote, "The demonstrations in both countries come from the same sense of struggling to make ends meet every month. It began in both countries with the government increasing the cost of fuel. Belgians, for instance, pay the highest state taxes on diesel in Europe. The French government backed down on the proposed fuel tax increase, and Belgian ministers did the same, announcing the fuel prices would not be index-linked from 2019. But in both countries, for some odd reason, the protests have continued." Again, this is not just about a stupid gas tax. It might be one thing. It might be the last, as they say, straw that broke the camel's back. Got a little Bitcoin Ben here. Bitcoin Ben. Interesting. Bitcoin Ben's world's largest crypto meetup. All profits go to charity. That's something he was talking about the other day. A little meetup he's trying to put together at some point, I think in 2019. It's going to be a nice big event. I pretty much have decided I'm going to go ahead and go to that. But there'll be more information. He'll tell, I'm sure, more about it when he's ready. He's the one doing it. So anyway, it's not just about tax. It began in both countries. Again, the highest freaking tax of all is in Belgium, the diesel tax. According to Eurostat, the European Union statistical body, tax to GDP ratio rose across Europe in 2017. France tops the list with tax revenue accounting for 48.4% of GDP. Wow. Holy crap. And Belgium follows close behind with a tax to GDP ratio of just 47.3, 1% behind. Whoa. Economist Philippe Defeat. I have to ask Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude, how do you pronounce that? D-E-F-E-Y-T. Philippe Defeat told Belgian media, RTBF, that while the cost of living has increased in Belgium, so too has the average income, apart from the lowest earners, who have been squeezed even tighter. A retired man told RTBF that he receives a pension of 1,350 euros a month. "I get it on the 23rd of the month. It's now the 8th, and I've paid insurance, rent, energy bills, which cost 150 euros. I only have 200 left for living expenses." So I don't know. Maybe all of those cost 150. I don't know where you got that number from. I mean, yeah, if you got 1,350 a month, long story short, after he pays his insurance, rent, energy bills, everything else, he's only got $200 left for the entire month. A Facebook group for yellow vests in Belgium lays out some of their demands to the government: lowering the retirement age, decreasing fuel excise duties, decreasing the cost of electricity and water, and choice of referendums at all levels of legislative decision-making, increasing pensions, improving public services, and increasing purchasing power. The average price of electricity has risen $10 in the past year, which I would assume 10 euros, whatever, per month I would assume. Protesters describe a general ras-le-bol fiscal, or financial despair. It's a similar story in Belgium. In Brussels, salaries are $300 higher, again euros, higher than the average salary in the rest of the country. With a capital that also doubles as the capital of Europe, Belgian citizens are frustrated by what they see as their lawmakers' inability to solve problems closer to home. One protester gestured to the European institutional buildings behind him while talking to NBC Euronews reporter. There, in Europe, they're having fun. They're laughing, he said. The people who make the laws are the ones driving us further into the ground. We have empty pockets. We shouldn't be called the yellow vests, but the empty pockets. I'm with them. My brother, whoever you are, I'm with you. But there's an issue. And this is one issue that a tissue can't fix. We got a guy named Trump over here on our side. The rest of the world pretty much has criminals. Criminal New World Order people still trying one last hope of pushing through. And you guys are taking the brunt of it. But the good news is, because you're taking the brunt of it over there, you're going to be the ones that revolt the hardest. So these globalists are going to see just what the citizenry over there is willing to take and what they're willing not to take. And when they're not willing to take it, what they're actually willing to do to make massive change. The protests in Belgium have been largely peaceful, but there have been some violent clashes as well. On December 8th, police in Brussels blockaded a zone which houses the European Commission and the European Council, which essentially blocked in the protesters. When a group of protesters attempted to break through the barricade, there were clashes between them and the police. Around 400 people were arrested at the protest, with 3 police being injured. Police fired tear gas and water cannons at the protesters, calling for Prime Minister Charles Michel's resignation. Some protesters threw paving stones, fireworks, flares, road signs, and other objects at police. There seems to be people deliberately escalating the violence, blah, blah, blah. Protests in the Netherlands. There have been yellow vest protests in the Netherlands, as well as though the protests have been much smaller crowds, and there have been no reports of violence. In stark contrast to French President Macron, Dutch President Minister Mark Rutte has expressed sympathy for the protests, indicating that there will be more money to spend for the Dutch people and acknowledging the problems they are facing. Notably, however, there hasn't been any explanation of how they will have more money to spend or what the Dutch government is going to do in order to ensure it. At this point, the Netherlands protests seem to be more of an acknowledgement of the Dutch crisis, more so than a mass movement against it. Where are the European protests headed? While no one knows just where the French and now apparently European protests are heading, there's clearly the sense on the part of the protesters and ordinary Europeans that they are losing their countries. They're losing it to a globalist agenda, whether it be free trade, immigration, eco-fascism, high taxes, low wages, or a confluence of all and more of those issues. Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's all and more. More to come. More that they may not even know about yet. So we have these things called democracies and cycles of government, types of government, from king and queen and oligarchy and monarchy, democracy. Again, I've done a video at least 3 times now, I think. Just Google it, YouTube it, whatever, search for it. JSNIP4 or Realist News. The cycles of government. And it's all laid out. It's nothing more than a cycle. Just like we have these boom and bust periods in the economy, we have crypto and stock market booms and busts. The same thing. Everything's a cycle. Everything is a cycle. And guess what? You may not know this. So is the type of government you have. The whole EU experiment is done. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, may not be next year, but the EU experiment is done. People want their countries back. They want their borders back. They don't want immigrants who have absolutely no skills, nothing, coming in. Well, we got to feel bad for these people. Okay, but we have a certain unemployment rate as is. We don't need to be dishing out more help to people, freeloaders, basically, because that's what happens. They get on welfare. Now they're even on welfare, which you and I would not want to be on. You know, we'd like to have a little extra income every month, right? Working hard and getting good income. We don't want to be on welfare. But there's a group of people in this world who've never had welfare and have struggled beyond imagine. Or beyond your imagination, maybe. And are now able to get welfare in some of these Western countries, like in the EU. So that to them, they'll live like that the rest of their lives. We're happy. We're good. And then maybe when some of these corporations decide, let's start training some of those guys, they'll work for a pittance. You European or you American with your salary and your rights and your bills and your lifestyle, I don't want to hear about that. These guys are willing to work way cheaper than you. That's because they had nothing where they came from. They'll do anything to survive. You gave them welfare. Now they're going to earn a little bit more than welfare wages, and they'll be, according to you, they'll be happy. They'll be living in slums. They'll be living in ghettos, and it won't matter to them. It's better than what they had. But my question's always been, what does that mean for everybody else? Do these elitists think that everybody else just will fall by the wayside, become homeless or something, like not do anything about this? It amazes me that it's like they don't even study history. But history is doomed to repeat, and it ain't going to be pretty for them. As Cliff High said, there was a meme, a Webbot thing, the Rothschilds' property, migrants, people, whatever, taking up refuge on their property. How do you like that one? Oh, you want to bring migrants over? They're going to go live in your property. He just tweeted the other day, some temporal markers appear to be filling. He says, I would expect to see that in the near future. And I can't wait. Guys, girls out there, you see that happening? Immigrants on the Rothschild family property, on their lawn, anything. You let J-Snip4 know immediately. And I will do a video very quickly because I've been waiting for this for a long time. Take care.